What's going on, guys? Dan Watson, learning cameras, and I've got the DJI Spark right here. And if you're interested in this drone, I can't blame you at all. It's really cool looking, super tiny. I was blown away when I first got this thing. It has a really good camera system, 2-axis controller, and it's really awesome for kind of showing off to your friends, this kind of Jedi move, gimbal control like that.
Not kidding. Are you serious? Nah, for real.
But really, once I was done showing this off, I just kept staring at this thing and I'm like, when am I actually gonna wanna use this? And should you actually buy this over some of the other options that there might be? So we're gonna take a look at that. And so I figured the best place is gonna be to use this as I was actually traveling to the Great Smoky Mountains. And shameless plug right here, if you wanna see a lot of the footage, video, photos, and stuff like that from that trip, go ahead and follow me on Facebook and Instagram. That's where most of that stuff is getting posted. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that because I will be posting a full video kind of behind the scenes and stuff like that of this trip. And so make sure you're subscribed. So I thought that this is gonna be the great opportunity to be able to fly this drone. And honestly, I didn't bring it with me at all on any of my backpacking trips. I'm gonna tell you why in this video review. So the first problem is you get this, and you get this box. And fitting this thing in the box, well, first of all, this box has no handles on it whatsoever. It's kind of just held together with friction, so I'm always worried that if I'm gonna drop this thing, this is gonna fall right out and get bloodied and scratched up on the ground. But if you're trying to fit this thing, now what? Now how do I take this thing around with me? So I have two kinds of bags that I use, and one is a backpack and one is a messenger. So here's my backpack, and you can see that my Mavic fits really easily. I have a little case in here, which is not in right now, but it fits really easily in this spot right here. And this controller can fit almost anywhere. In fact, I have a little bit too much room. Here's the case for this, and it really just doesn't fit at all in my bag. So there is no way of doing this. I have to go caseless in order to get this in here. And even when I do, it really takes up just as much, almost half of the entire backpack to get this thing working. And that was just too much room for me. So then I tried my messenger bag, and with that, I put this in here, and I had no space for anything else. Whereas when I put my Mavic in here, I can actually hold a whole nother camera system and lens because it either goes flat on the bottom and doesn't take up much height, or I can go upright in one of the corners, and that leaves me half of the backpack or half of the bag in order to fit all kinds of other stuff. So with this one, it just never traveled very well with me, no matter what kind of bag I was taking with me. And so it didn't make it on half the trips that I went on. The other thing is gonna be the battery life. I got this basic kit, which includes this. Single battery, 15 minutes of flight time on this. And if you get that, you're gonna be lucky. Most likely you're gonna be landing this thing closer to about the 10 to 12 minute mark. And without the controller, it was, I'd say I flew about 30, 40 feet before this thing was yelling at me for signal loss and all that kind of stuff. It never really lost signal. It just kept on flagging warnings for me, and I just kept on getting scared that I was gonna lose this thing in the middle of nowhere, and so it just wasn't a place that I felt very comfortable flying it. So if you really plan on doing anything awesome, you're gonna wanna pony up to 700 bucks for the kit. That includes the remote controller and the extra battery. Now you're gonna use up even more room than this, but it's gonna be a little bit better as far as actually being able to take cinematic moves. I am using this to control it with my phone, which also meant that you really weren't able to get any haptic feedback on where your finger placements are. This phone screen was washed out in bright daylight. And so it just wasn't very easy to get nice cinematic moves on this, and controlling it just with the phone was extremely difficult. So you're definitely gonna want the controller and the extra battery. That kit is gonna get you to about 700 bucks, which was really, really close to under the $1,000 for that Mavic. And really, this is gonna be a much larger unit by the time you try and take this thing with you. So if you're still watching this video, there are a couple things that are pretty decent about this drone, and one is the gesture controls. But every time I tried to use it, I kept thinking, after I was done showing it off to my friends and doing my Jedi moves, when am I ever gonna want to take this kind of weird angle selfie? It was really an elaborate set off to have the drone take a picture at a very weird angle. I was uncomfortable using it in certain areas, and it just looks very weird. You can't do video at all. You can't control the angle of it. And so there's so much limitations. You're gonna end up using your phone or a controller anyway. And while the gesture control did work pretty well, it just wasn't 100% on. And so there's some times that you're waving at the drone and just trying to get it to recognize you. And meanwhile, you're just sitting there waiting for the battery to run out so it hopefully lands itself in somewhere safe and you can get the drone back. And so, I mean, overall, it just didn't seem that good for that. Now, you do have a pretty good camera on here. I was actually impressed with the quality of it. It's 1080p only, not 4K. However, you only have 2 axes on the gimbal, not 3 like the other ones. And so if you get a lot of wind on that, you will see that in the footage. And then the other thing is that you'd lose some of the advanced video modes that you get on some of the other drones. So with all of that said, it just didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. So the only place that I really think that this is gonna be good for is, you know, throwing this in the back of your car for a trip to the park. You're gonna be flying it off casually, not really looking for anything cool, taking a couple pictures with it in video. I really don't think that it's good enough to actually do anything with that. The photos in reality are gonna be at a weird angle, but it's really cool. And if you have $500 or $700 to blow on something like that, it could be really interesting and really nice to use for something like that. But if you're using this for anything serious, I mean, honestly, there are 2 better options for this. This thing in just about the same profile gives me so much better quality. It was actually easier to port around once you have to put this thing in the case, or once you get the controller and everything else. It just fit nicer in the setup, so I wasn't worried about damaging any of these propeller blades. With this in my bag like this, I was really worried about damaging it, so I wanted to keep it in the case. This is gonna get you 4K recording, the advanced options, and really and truly you're talking about $300 more. Now, if you are looking at just saving money, for 500 bucks, you can get the Phantom 3 4K, which is the drone that I personally use all the time. It is a great drone. It has all of the options, the advanced video modes. There's no sensors or anything like that, but you do get a controller, which is really, really great for controlling it and getting cinematic moves. And so if you have 500 bucks and want something really good, that's gonna be the way to go on this. And so, I mean, I just kept on looking at this thing and don't know where to fly. So, I mean, if you have any sound off in the comments below, if you know what you would use this thing for, if you still want it. I've got links in the description, but most importantly, I've got links for the Mavic Pro. And really what this Spark says to me is, this is time to buy the Mavic. If you were looking for a cool, small, portable drone, and you thought that this was either a little bit too expensive or just didn't quite do it for you, you wanted something even a little bit smaller, here we have it, and it really sucks in comparison. And by the end of the day, you're really gonna want this. It's gonna give you so much more power. It's still extremely portable. It only takes a minute to set this thing up and get it to fly. And really the gesture controls and things like that are just not what they could be. And so all in all, you're gonna want that control, you're gonna want that setup, you're gonna want that battery life. So take a look at this. Again, subscribe if you haven't already, and check out all of our Facebook and Instagram posts to be able to see us behind the scenes. Stay tuned, a whole lot more to come.